What's good, people? It's Joshua from Joshua Chubb Photography, back again with another video. And before I get too far ahead of myself, there's something that I gotta do. Do what you will with that information.
This is the emergency broadcast system. This is not a test.
So in today's video, I wanted to talk about how I have my Fujifilm X-T3 set for function. So in today's video, I wanted to talk to you guys about how I have my Fujifilm X-T3 set up for as far as custom functions go. And so for those of you who don't know, pretty much with any camera, there are certain buttons, C1, C2, is sometimes how it's labeled on the camera, but you can actually program these buttons as shortcuts to do certain functions that you often use. And so first I'll show you how to find that in the menu for a Fujifilm camera, and then I'll just kind of go through and tell you how I have each button set up. And for the ones that aren't so obvious, I'll tell you in what certain situation I might use that particular function. So it's obvious that I don't know how to record the back of my screen properly. I don't have an Atomos Ninja, and so yeah, we're just gonna do this the old-fashioned way. So once you hop into the menu, you'll see on the left side here, we'll go up to our wrench icon, and we'll go over and down to button dial setting. From here, we're going to go to function FN setting, and from here it'll actually point out the different buttons that are able to be customized. And so, like I said, I'll just go through now and tell you the different ones that I have set up here. So jumping right in here to the first custom button that's on the front of the camera, I have this set to face and eye detect, and when you select it, it'll basically just toggle that function on and off. I think everyone knows what face and eye detect are. No need to go any further. Top of the camera, there's another function button here. This one I have set to basically toggle on and off preview, exposure, and white balance. And I don't really use like the one that says white balance. I don't really care about that. But I like to be able to turn off the ability to preview my exposure. And this comes in handy when I'm shooting in the studio. So anyone who shoots in the studio, you know that the goal is, when you're setting up your strobes, is you want to cut out all of the ambient light. That way the strobes that you're working with, or even if you're using continuous light, you want to be able to manipulate it as you please. And so what happens, so like usually when I'm in the studio, my ISO is set to 160. My aperture is normally around 7.1 when I'm using strobes. And then my shutter speed is usually around 1/250. And so when I have the camera dialed into that, I'll dial into that right now. It is dark. I don't know if this is gonna focus. You can kind of see a reflection, but you can't see me because, and actually I do have a circular polarizer on here too, so that's definitely not helping matters either. But it's too dark. So when I'm in the studio and I'm trying to compose a shot, I can't see anything. So being able to hit this button and basically turn off the preview exposure, it allows me to see my subject. So let me show you what that looks like real quick. All right, so this is the back of the screen, and like I say, I'm dialed in ISO 160, or you can actually see it on the bottom here. ISO is 160, 7.1, and then 1/250. And so now when I hit my function button, bam, I can actually see, you know, my scene. and this is a super duper handy feature for studio photography. So the next button, we'll just kind of work our way down, is going to be the Ael button, and this stands for, if I'm not mistaken, Auto Exposure Lock. I don't use this often. This is the default, so I never changed it. So this is the default button, or the default function, Auto Exposure Lock, and let me know in the comments if that's not what it stands for. But basically, if you are not in manual mode, so if you're in aperture priority or you're in shutter priority, what happens is if you hold this button down, it'll lock the exposure. So if you have a scene composed right, maybe you're waiting for like a subject to enter the frame, and you know it might be super cloudy, so if a cloud passes by, it'll mess up your exposure. You're able to hold this down, it'll lock the exposure. That way when you go to take the picture, it's not going to reassess the scene and possibly change your exposure. So this is probably most useful for like street photography. Say it's not a feature that I really use at all. Most of the time I'm shooting in manual mode, so you can't even use this feature in manual mode. But that's what it's for. Next button over here, some people might not even know that you can customize this, but the rear dial here, you can actually press in. And if you are in AFM, which is going to be, actually not AFM, there's no such thing, I suck at my job. But if you're in manual focus, basically this will allow you to punch in, so just is going to magnify whatever you're looking at for critical focus. And then we do have the Afl button, and that is going to be Autofocus Lock. And basically I don't have it set for that though. I actually have it set for AF on, and so basically this just allows me to essentially back button focus, or if I'm in continuous focus, this just allows me to hold down without holding down the shutter here. Moving on down, so funny thing, because every button that I have customized, it saves me from using the Q menu. So I actually don't use the Q menu at all, because everything that I often do, there's a function button assigned for it. So moving to the back of the camera, I have the up button. That one is going to be set to white balance. I don't use white balance too often, but every now and then I will have to dial in if I'm going for a certain look. And the left button, or actually to me this is the right button. The right button is set to the self timer. From there it allows me to select 2 seconds or 10 seconds, pretty easy. Then we have the left button. This is actually going to be set for shutter type. So it allows me to go from mechanical shutter to electronic shutter. Usually I only use this like if maybe I'm doing like a wedding and I don't want to hear click 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 click. And then we have the down button, and then that is just going to be set for image quality. So if I want to bounce between RAW or RAW and JPEG, that's just a shortcut to get there. And then really the only other setting that I use all the time that you can't actually even program as one of these buttons is going to be the format the memory card. But for those of you who don't know, what you can do is, while you are just on not in the menu or not in the playback, if you press and hold the trash can, and so we got the trash can here. So if you press and hold the trash can and you select your rear command dial, it'll actually jump right in and let you select which card you want to format. So handy dandy shortcut there. And then of course the thing about Fuji and the aesthetics, everything else was not really everything else. The only other thing that I use are going to be buttons. So AFC, AFS manual focus switch is here. No need to jump into the menu to change that. And then up here, this might be kind of hard to see, but on the collar here is our drive modes. So I can go from single, continuous low, continuous high, all the way over to movie mode. Now, the X-T4, I think it actually, on the opposite collar, there is a photo mode and a movie mode. So that's, you know, kind of handy, but I don't really shoot video that often to really care. And then of course on the other collar, you actually have your metering mode. So you have like spot, weighted, average. I don't really use that at all. It just kind of stays in, I think this is weighted. So it just kind of stays there, never really touch it. And then we have the exposure comp, which is good if you're, you know, in aperture priority or shutter priority. I don't really use that either though. So yeah, just a quick video just to kind of show you guys how I have everything dialed in. And of course with Fuji, the thing that I love, basically all of the cameras have an aperture lens, an aperture ring that you can program your aperture, shutter speed. For this particular camera, shutter speed is here, ISO is here. So everything I need is just, you know, a quick click away. Very, very rarely do I actually have to jump into the menu to do something. And like I said, I don't have anything actually set up in my Q menu. If you were to look at it, everything is blank in the Q menu. I don't use it at all. Now, like I said, for some of the other cameras, without the D-pad, yeah, I do have to use the Q menu or the swipe functions. But that's why this is like my favorite like work camera. I love the screen, just being able to pop out here. I'm not trying to make this into a review video, but you know, I've had this camera for I think 2 years now. So it is, you know, by far like my favorite camera that I've worked with. So yeah, let me know down in the comments, you know, were there some features that, you know, maybe I should have in the Q menu that you guys might use. And I can hear maybe somebody thinking about film simulations. I never changed the film simulation in camera. I always shoot raw, like if I'm doing like a paid gig. So if I want to change it in post, I can always do that. But yeah, so let me know, are there any features that you guys use that you have set to a certain button? You know, do you use the Q menu at all? Maybe you don't use the Q menu at all. Maybe there's some features that you didn't even know that you can program. So anyway, guys, that's it for this video. Until next time, I'll see y'all in the comments. Peace.